all you need to know, the Bloomberg Quint podcast that prepares you for the day's business.
Good morning and thanks for listening in. This is the daily morning update from Bloomberg Quint and I'm Alex Matthew. Today is the 15th of December. Here's everything that you need to know. In the top news, and this is news on the economy, retail inflation in India has shown signs of easing in November, led by easing prices of some food items. Consumer Price Index inflation stood at 6.93% in November, compared with 7.61% in October, according to data released by the Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation. The rise in prices in October had been the sharpest since May of 2014. Now, inflation in food and beverages dropped to 8.76% in November, compared with 10.16% in the previous month. But core inflation rose further to the highest in nearly 2 years, at 5.51% in November, compared with 5.46% in the previous month. Speaking of economics, according to a report led by Raghuram Rajan and former ECB head Mario Draghi, the world's policymakers must act urgently if they are to head off a looming solvency crisis that could cripple economies after the pandemic. The two headed a group of 30 study that looked at the response to the crisis. The report that they came up with says that the massive flood of liquidity pumped into economies to keep companies afloat during shutdowns is unsustainable, and a cliff edge of insolvencies is coming as support programs lose funding and capital is eaten up by losses. Back home, Air India has received early bids from the Tata Group and a cohort of its own employees as the government tries to rescue its loss-making flag carrier. Tata Sons has submitted an expression of interest, and a group of 219 Air India employees has also submitted a bid to purchase a majority stake. In regulatory news, the Reserve Bank of India has exempted certain categories of accounts, primarily current accounts, from the tighter rules that it had introduced earlier this year for opening these accounts, which don't pay an interest and are used to park cash for the short term by businesses. In August of this year, the RBI had set new conditions for banks to open current accounts for large borrowers in order to strengthen credit discipline. For more details on the exemptions that have been allowed, do look up the story on the website bloombergquint.com. Now, in the ongoing court battle between the Tatas and the Mistries, the Mistry side has cited reasons why it believes that Tata Sons was not being run as a board-managed company. Senior advocate C.A. Sundaram, who was representing Mistry, told the Supreme Court bench yesterday that directors of Tata Trusts on the board of Tata Sons were made aware of all decisions, but Ratan Tata insisted on being personally consulted. The Mistry side said that this was interference. Oil came off session highs overnight as the OPEC cut forecasts for oil demand again, pointing to uncertainties around the pandemic and the rollout of vaccines. Futures were little changed after rising as much as 1.9% in New York. The Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries, in a monthly report, reduced projections for global fuel consumption in the first quarter of 2021 by 1 million barrels a day. Now, if you had issues with some of Google's ubiquitous services yesterday, you weren't alone. There were widespread outages around the world, preventing people from accessing Gmail, YouTube, and other products. In international markets, US equities ended mixed, with the Dow and the S&P 500 losing about 0.5% each, and the Nasdaq gaining by that amount. In the Asia-Pacific region, all three early risers have started out with cuts, but the losses are narrow at this point. And with that, it's over to Hormuz Fatakia for the trade setup for the day in India. Morning, Hormuz. How are we looking today?
Good morning to you, Alex, and to our listeners as well. It was the third straight day of sideways movement for the markets, but the Sensex and the Nifty managed to close at record highs despite the modest gains. Metals and PSU stocks continued to make waves. The metals index closed at a two-year high on Monday, while the Nifty PSE index closed at the highest level since February. The FMCG index closed at another record high. So what specific stocks do we have in focus today? First up, Kotak Mahindra Bank, as the Reserve Bank of India has granted approval for the reappointments of Uday Kotak as MD and CEO, Prakash Apte as part-time chairman, and Deepak Gupta as joint managing director. This will be for a period of 3 years starting January the 1st of 2021. Tata Steel has increased its aggregate indirect shareholding in Tata Steel Minerals Canada to 82% after acquiring additional equity worth 4.3%. The acquisition was done via share swap and other intercompany adjustments. The transaction has been done on a cashless basis and is part of the share swap agreement. The government has sold further stake in Axis Bank through the specified undertaking of the Unit Trust of India, or SUTI. The government sold over 33 lakh shares between 10th and the 14th of December, taking the total number of shares sold this month to close to 2 crore. The second best IPO of 2020, but the best listing of the year. Burger King made a smashing debut on the bourses on Monday. After listing at a premium of over 90%, the stock extended gains to end 130% higher than its issue price. The stock had an issue price of 60 rupees and ended at 138.4 rupees a share. Some big names have also checked into the stock on its listing debut. Valiant Mauritius Partners Offshore bought 25 lakh shares, as did Basant Maheshwari Wealth Advisors, which also acquired over 24 lakh shares. Borosil Renewables will be in focus today. The company has launched a QIP issue late Monday evening. The floor price of 133.19 rupees a share is a 15% discount to Monday's closing price. In other news related to the stock, the Directorate General of Trade Remedies of the Ministry of Commerce and Industry has issued final findings for the imposition of countervailing duty of 9.71% of cost, insurance and freight value for a period of 5 years on the import of textured, tempered, coated or uncoated glass from Malaysia. The stock was locked in an upper circuit of 20% on Monday. In some key brokerage announcements, keep a watch on Interglobe Aviation, where HSBC has downgraded the stock to reduce from hold. The brokerage, however, has raised its price target to 1,490 rupees from the earlier 1,250 rupees. Some buzzing stocks that I want to highlight from Monday's session. Indian Bank was the top gainer on the Nifty Small Cap Index, ending with gains of over 11%. The stock closed at its highest level since February this year. Speaking of Indian Bank, the lender has raised further capital worth 560 crore rupees through private placement of additional Tier 1 bonds. Ifb Industries is the second stock I wish to address. The stock ended 13% higher at the highest level in over 2 years. The 6-day gaining streak that the stock has had has resulted in it gaining over 45% during this period. And Hindustan Copper is the third stock that I want to talk about. The stock gained 20% on Monday to end at the highest level in over 2 years. Early ticks on the SGX Nifty showed that the index traded 30 points lower, around the mark of 13,560. To know more about the stocks that will be in focus today, do log into BloombergQuint.com and read up on the All You Need to Know copy. And with that, I wish you a safe day ahead, and it's back to you, Alex.
Thanks, Hormus, and as always, thank you all for listening in. This is Alex Matthews signing off. Have a great day.
I hope you enjoyed listening to All You Need to Know. Did you know that you can listen to the show on the IVM Podcast app? On the IVM Podcast app, along with this, we have a number of other shows which you think you'll enjoy. Listen to Cyrus Says with Cyrus Brocha as the host. Listen to Paisa Vaisa with Anupam Gupta. The Scene and the Unseen with Amit Verma, or Shunya One hosted by Shiladitya Mukhopadhyay and myself. Check out the IVM Podcast app to get more talk content that you will enjoy.